You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do?
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Well, they really got to get a lid on this Ebola disease. Already, it has killed 2,000 people. Now, this is the second largest outbreak, but the fastest growing outbreak. This is moving faster than the one from 2014 to 2016 that ended up killing 11,300, I believe. This strain is a little different. It's the Bundibugyo strain, and the existing treatments don't seem to be as effective. So the death toll continues to rise in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And infectious disease experts are warning people around the world that they should remain aware of this. The virus has spread rapidly across parts of eastern and northeastern DRC, with early cross-border cases in Uganda. Published government data shows a total of 4,381 confirmed cases. Unfortunately, by the time this got figured out, it had already spread, and epidemiologists had to do a lot of catch-up. The good news is we aren't seeing it in countries beyond that. But unfortunately, if the death toll has already surpassed 2,000 people, that means those individuals got it bad enough where medicine didn't work. They got diagnosed too late. And if they were diagnosed too late, they must have exposed multiple people before they were found and then treated. So the speed, the pace at which this is moving is unprecedented. And according to public experts, they say, according to David Wohl, Dr. Wohl, Division of Infectious Disease at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, told Fox News Digital that the slope is just so catastrophic, with more and more people getting infected at a very significant pace without much slowing down. So you are having the issues of, you have dense populations, you have limited access, you have people distrustful of leaving their village, leaving their town, and going to get treatment at these medical centers. You also have militias and rebels who are attacking these medical centers. And then you also have some people who are just in denial. Now, that's something I saw as a doctor a lot. Somebody would have cancer, or they would have diabetes, or they would have obesity, or they would have a medical condition, and they just didn't believe it. They were just in denial. And you ask, I remember a medical student going, why? Can't they just look in the mirror? You're showing them their labs. Why are they in denial? And I go, well, it's a defense mechanism. I mean, when I look in the mirror, okay, I don't see myself as overweight. Okay, I see myself as a supermodel. If I didn't, I would get sad. So you mentally block, or you mentally reperceive things. The problem is then you're not going to get stuff done. That's what we just talked about with students not getting grades and being told, oh, you're good, you're passing. You aren't going to better yourself. You aren't going to try and improve. So as a doctor, I had to be very, very careful with somebody's mental health, where I told you about this case where one of my patients was a smoker, was coughing. So I did a chest x-ray. And because I had a background as an ER doc and urgent care doc, we had an x-ray on site. Plus my husband's a chiropractor. And I love looking at my own films. So I do his chest x-ray, and he's got this big ball mass in his upper left lobe of his lung. So I go, Frank, come here. I got to show you something. All right. And he goes, lay it on me, doc. What do I got? I go, well, this is what I'm looking at that's in your lung right now. And he goes, all right, so should I load the gun tonight? And I'm like, no, you should not load the gun and kill yourself. Because I got to tell you something. I'm looking at this ball, and I'm not getting a feeling that it's bad. Could be a fungal ball. Could be fungus. Could be, I'm just not getting that. It looks too cute. It looks too round. I just don't have that feeling that this is a bad cancer. So you're going to put the gun away, and you're going to fight. And we're going to knock this sucker out of the ballpark. We're going to take a bat to this ball and knock it the hell out. So I send him to a cardiovascular, I sent him to a thoracic surgeon. The thoracic surgeon calls me the next day. Again, you wouldn't have that in socialized medicine, but I was able to get him in to the specialist. And the surgeon goes, Dahlia, will you please talk to your patient? He doesn't want me to do surgery because he says it's not cancer and that it's fungus. What the hell is he talking about? Will you tell him to get the surgery? This is cancer. I go, one, that might be my fault because I gave him a differential of all the possibilities. But yeah, put him on the phone. Frank, get the damn surgery because even if it is fungus, you got to get it out. Get the surgery. All right. So he gets the surgery done. They do the biopsy. They do the pathology. And you know what? It was a fungal ball. It wasn't cancer. It was a fungal ball. Now, he needed to have that lobe of lung removed. Not sure how he got that fungus. So my instinct was right. But if I would have told the guy that he had cancer and had the approach that the thoracic surgeon had, that attitude, my patient Frank would have killed himself that night. And so I have to be very careful. And I didn't want to lie, and I didn't want to blow smoke and give false hope. But I was really honest. I go, this just doesn't look like typical lung cancer to me. It was probably the size of a pickleball. It was a big round mass in his lungs. But it just looked too round to me. So I always have to understand that if I want a patient to be able to be compliant and follow my recommendations, they got to be on board. And they got to think there's a reason to fight. And thank God, and he thanked me. He was like, Doc, you were right. Did I still need the surgery? I go, yes, you did, because the fungus was consuming the whole lung. It had to come out. There was no way to salvage the lung cutting that whole thing out. So it worked out good. But, with Ebola, if you have patients going, well, I don't want to go in, I don't want to, they're not going to get treated. And then if they're not going to get treated or isolate, they're going to spread it to other people. So this is kind of what's going on there. During the massive 2014 outbreak in West Africa, 28,000 people got diagnosed. I believe it was like 11,300 people died. And it was the worst outbreak of Ebola we've seen. And we've seen Ebola since the 70s. But that's when we first isolated it. But this is spreading too quickly. And so, and it doesn't look like they're limiting it yet. We'll keep you posted. 1-877 Dr. Dolly.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So sadly, we've had another American killed by the hands of somebody who should have never been in this country. And the stabbing suspect arrested for stabbing an elderly man outside his Bay Area home in front of his neighbors was apparently an illegal migrant from Venezuela. He had been released from jail the day before. Goes to this man who's working, I believe, in his garage, argues with him, gets him out of the garage, and ends up stabbing him. Marcos Iriarte Valdez, 36 years old, whose full legal name was identified by federal authorities as Marcos Eduardo Iriarte Valdez Usper, was an alien who had a previous criminal history, also holds citizenship in Spain, is accused of fatally stabbing Todd Stewart, 68 years old, on the front lawn of the retiree's home last week. Surveillance footage captured the whole attack. Not sure why, what the motive was, why he was in America, what the hell was going on, why he was released from jail, but there's a lot of questions. Being reported by the New York Post, on Tuesday, the Department of Homeland Security revealed that Iriarte Valdez is a Venezuelan illegal alien who committed the alleged crime in Sanctuary, California. The department posted on X, Governor Gavin Newsom must not release this murderer from jail and turn him over to us so we can remove him from our nation. Sanctuary politicians must stop putting politics above public safety. This type of insanity leads to more crimes and more innocent victims. They say because sanctuary cities refuse to work with ICE law enforcement, criminal illegal aliens are released from jails into American communities to perpetuate more crimes. Iriarte Valdez has been in the U.S. since 2007. Apparently was already in trouble with the law and on pre-trial release for a residential burglary case when he was jailed last Tuesday for allegedly violating the terms of his home detention monitoring. A day later, a Contra Costa County Superior Court judge released him on his own recognizance and referred him back to home detention monitoring. Less than 24 hours later, someone's dead. Now, not sure what went from a burglary to a murderer. Again, we don't know much, but Martinez Police Chief Andrew White said the stabber apparently did not even have his home detention monitoring equipment placed on him until Friday, which was the day after Stewart was killed. So he was sent home to be monitored, but they didn't get to the monitoring. So he was free to do whatever. He was arrested Friday evening at his home on the 1600 block of Ashwood Drive on suspicion of murder. He's being held on $1.1 million bail. This is very, very frustrating because the only reason I could think that a Democrat would want criminal illegal aliens to be in America is for the vote. They try to say, well, they have rights and to deport them is cruel. If somebody commits a crime, if I go to Japan and commit a crime, if I go to Canada, if I sneak into Canada, they deport you immediately. Look at every other country's deportation laws. They're stricter. And it's so obvious that and this is also why they want to get rid of the Electoral College. Because if they get through sanctuary cities, up the population and then use that population to sway elections, then they stay in control. But if they're killing your constituents, you're not doing your job. And that's frightening. And so you have George Soros and people, funding these riots and people trying to push ICE out of their community. And ICE wouldn't have to deport if we didn't have the border debacle that we had with Biden. And our deportation is way milder than other countries. But you don't see people protesting ICE in Canada or Germany or Japan. Look at their rules. Read online. They're all over. It's very easy for you to read. You misrepresent, you sneak across the border, you commit crime, even under the process of trying to naturalize. You get kicked out of these countries. It's a no-brainer. Yet in America, when we have those same rules, oh my gosh, we're cruel. Why? Because, again, and we wouldn't be in this position if our voter laws, again, mirrored other countries. You have to be a citizen to vote. If you're not a citizen, you don't get to vote. So this would be moot. The deportation, the illegal aliens, the numbers, that would be moot if they couldn't vote anyway. But we have such a half-ass system where Democrats think, no, we still got their vote. We don't have any law preventing that or enforcing it. Nobody has to show ID, so just bring them in and don't deport them, and we're going to fight them deporting them. Well, it's a mess, and we look stupid. Other countries are looking at us like, really? You don't have this figured out? Mail-in ballots. If you ask for a mail-in ballot in any other country, you have to qualify for it. You have to apply for it. Once they give you that negates your ability to vote in person. You are now responsible for that said ballot. If you want to do it permanently, that's a whole nother application process. Oh my God, that would be horrible in America. It would hurt women. Any other country does that because mail-in ballots offer ways to cheat. This really is a no-brainer. It's obvious. And everybody acts like America is the most cruelest country in the world. But any other country, they handle their mail-in ballots very strictly. Interestingly, ICE agents may be wearing electric shock gloves, according to Newsweek. They say the Trump administration could soon equip federal immigration agents with gloves capable of delivering electric shocks during physical confrontations. The devices, known as glove-generated low-output voltage emitter, are manufactured by Kentucky-based Compliant Technologies, LLC, and they're marketed as a tool to help officers gain control of resistant individuals during close-range encounters. This could also hopefully minimize gun encounters. Although somebody's coming at you with their van, somebody's coming at you, you're going to be limited. But Immigration and Customs Enforcement will spend up to $20 million on these devices for Homeland Security investigations and enforcement and removal operations. According to DHS spokesperson told Newsweek, ICE is constantly assessing the needs of our officers in the field to ensure they have the tools and equipment necessary to safely arrest and remove criminal illegal aliens from our country. Every decision is made with careful consideration and appropriately reviewed to ensure that any technology ICE utilizes is consistent with all applicable law enforcement policies and standards. They say our officers are highly trained in de-escalation tactics and regularly receive ongoing use of force training. So the low output can be safer than already some of the stunt guns we have. Because if somebody has cardiac issues or arrhythmias, some of these stunt guns could put them into an arrhythmia or put them into cardiac arrest. So something with low voltage may actually be a safer form. Compliant Technologies describes the glove, the GLOVE, as a wearable conductive distraction and de-escalation device. It functions as a standard patrol glove until activated. The company says the device is intended for law enforcement, corrections, security, military, and emergency medical personnel. They could activate the device using a switch located on the glove. It could then deliver an electrical stimulus to an individual's skin, which is intended to distract or interrupt muscle movement and gain compliance. So if you have somebody who is trying to fight the remember there was that man who was, I forget which state this was, where the female officer struggled to put handcuffs on him. It was at a traffic stop. I think it was an illegal immigrant. I think he had violated the law, and she was trying to put handcuffs on him, and he wrestled out of it. And then he jumped in the car. So she said she said she was going to reach for her stun gun, and instead she reached for her weapon, shot him, and he died. Something like that, if you could neutralize him temporarily, that I see that being very useful. Then you could get the handcuffs on him. You don't have to worry about somebody running away, being a threat, needing to use another weapon. So the company says the device typically achieves compliance within seconds and leaves no lasting marks. It adds that no more than 2 gloves should be applied at one time and generally for no longer than 15 seconds unless circumstances require additional force to gain control. The device must make direct skin contact and is not effective through clothing or hair. Now, the fact that this is made public, now I think you're going to have a lot of individuals cover up, neck, all that, and so there you got to be able to access skin. But it's interesting. 1-877 Dolly, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regenerations. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So headlines are saying that more Americans are having a harder time keeping up with their home and car payments. They're falling even further behind on their loans than at any time in the past decade. They say a greater share of people went at least 30 days late on their mortgage payments in the second quarter of this year than in any quarter since 2015, according to the New York Fed's latest quarterly report on household debt and credit. More also went into serious delinquency or 90 days late or more on their car payments during the same time period than at any quarter since 2010. Now, this is coming up, one, because people are going to be with the midterms talking about affordability. People can't afford their home. They can't afford their car. The student loan debt, right? There's going to be a big push to get student loan debt written off. Being that you're seeing more and more headlines about people's mortgages and cars, that's going to be next. You're going to see Democrats want us to write off other people's car payments and house payments. And, I'm a little confused as to, why we didn't have a much more conservative approach to finances early on. So I was always trained to not buy something beyond my means. Now, I get a lot of people have been losing their jobs. Okay, so you think your job, your $70,000 a year job, or your $90,000 a year job, or your $110,000 a year job is going to be your job for life. But, I think in the last few years, especially with COVID, we've kind of learned that it's different. This isn't your grandfather's economy, that where you get a job and then you're with a company for 25, 30 years, you get a pension. It doesn't happen that way. So we've known about how the economy and how our job could be gone at a whim very easily within the last 6 years, at least, with COVID. And so I'm wondering, and I'd like to see the percentage of the Americans who are struggling with their home payment and car payment. Were these made pre-COVID? And now that you've lost your job, you can't make ends meet, which is tragic. Or was this post-COVID where you overspent? And you said, you know what? I want a 4-bedroom house. Or I want an electric vehicle. All right, I knew early on that I couldn't afford an electric vehicle. These things were at minimum $50,000. And my Corvette is used. We got it way cheaper than that in 2020. And so I only buy what I could afford. I remember years ago, I was telling my father, I need to get a credit card. And he's like, why? And he goes, what do you want to buy? If you don't have the money, if you don't have the cash, you shouldn't buy it. I go, it's not that I want to buy anything. It's because I need to build a credit history. I can't move out of the house without a credit history. And my mom didn't want me moving out. And she's like, no, I don't want you having a credit card, because she didn't want me moving out. So I figured it out anyway. But for me I had to move into a dorm, and then I got a credit card, and then I built credit history so then I could finally get an apartment. But I remember, I always, that's how I always learned. If I can't afford what I want to buy, if I don't have the cash for it, I shouldn't buy it. Now, when it comes to a house, we've changed that thinking. We're like, well, you can get into a house. You make an agreement with a bank. You are going to owe, because nobody has cash for a house anymore. So you are going to owe, but the bank will not give you that loan if you can't prove your income and if the income isn't stable. So I'd like to know, of these Americans who are not able to pay their car payment and home payment, did they overbuy, or is it that they've had these homes, they've had these cars, and they don't have the job? And that's important to know, because we got a lot of newer, younger individuals wanting to get into the market, wanting to buy things. My first car, I spent $1,800 on. It was a Chevy Chevette. I think it was like an 86 or an 85 Chevy Chevette, no air conditioning. And I got it for $1,800. I needed to finance it. I didn't have $1,800. And so when they explained what financing meant, I'm like, oh, no, I'm not paying any more than $1,800. Just cut that $1,800 into payments. But I'm not going to end up paying more for this. Otherwise, I'm walking out. And they did that. They did. And then I made payments, and I worked, and I paid it off. But for me, starting out, I only bought what I could afford. My next car was an Isuzu truck. I got for, I think, $6,300. I remember I really got a good deal on that, because I traded in the Chevy Chevette. And I remember the guy starts running out going, wait a second, I messed up. I can't say the truck for this. And I go, I already signed it, so sorry. But again, I didn't have the money. I didn't have $6,200. So I used the car as the down payment, and then I waited tables in medical school to pay it off. And I used my tip money. And so I just always thought that I had to buy something small, build, work, pay it off, and then hopefully parlay it into something bigger. However, if you went into it with, I got a job, the bank approved it, and now I lost my job, well, that's a problem. And we could be looking at a major depression as we see more and more people lose their jobs. It's interesting. I'm seeing articles going, gosh, what do you do if your employee has a second job? Well, of course your employee is going to have a second job. The reason why I worked multiple part-time jobs isn't because I was money hungry. It was in case I lost one of those jobs, I had something else to fall back on. So I think a lot of people are thinking, God forbid I lose my job. I want to know that I have something else, because I can't just rely on unemployment. And unemployment obviously doesn't look like it's enough to pay for somebody's house and pay for somebody's car. Now, before the housing market gets really bad, if you are in a 4-bedroom or a house that you don't think you could afford, get out of it and downsize. And I've been saying this for years. Downsizing is the key. And I talked to my husband about this. I go, worst case scenario, I'm fine in an apartment. If the kids move out and and the apartment accepts animals, as long as I have room for my gym equipment and my computer, I only live in my house. I only live in probably 1,000 square feet of it. So I don't really need a 3,000 or a 4,000 square foot house. I just need a place to park the car. I need my treadmill. I need room for my computer. I need a place for the dogs and cats. And I'm good. And so maybe start to think like that. With the cars, I don't know what to say, because you want a car where you have warranty, and warranties are expensive. And you want a car that you could later sell. I don't know how to sell an electric vehicle. I think maybe the company will allow trade-ins, but it's really hard to sell a used electric vehicle with a used battery. So maybe rethink buying electric. Yes, it helps saving on gas, but if those cars are too expensive, maybe you shouldn't be buying those yet. So, Americans now struggling to pay for their own home and cars, that's going to be the next thing that you're going to hear Democrats say. Right? Free, right now it's free college, it's write-off student debt, and free health care. And then they're going to start to promise, well, we'll pay for your car, we'll pay for your mortgage. There's only so much. What about job creation? Well, we're just going to scare the rich people out of New York. We're just going to tax the rich. Well, that doesn't help create jobs. Why don't you incentivize the rich? For every job you create, we knock off $500 of your tax liability. Why don't you incentivize? That's what they should have done with Obamacare. Rather than penalizing you for not giving health insurance, for everybody you provide health insurance to, you get a tax break. For every employee you hire, you get a tax break. Incentivize. But that's not what the socialists want to do. And so, I think many of us, we got these new iPhones. We're going to be coming up on the holidays pretty quickly here. And everybody's going to want to buy the newer and better iPhone and buy and stream. And then the NFL streaming and people are spending and they're rethink about what you're spending money on and be more savvy with that. But at some point, you can't expect the government to help pay your bills. And with the massive job loss, we got to start thinking about downsizing now. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out. We are back on Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So this was an interesting email that I got from a listener. So apparently his child, they've started school. And being that it is, again, our 250th birthday, they started off with the American history. And my listener was a little concerned because the child was talking about how racist Thomas Jefferson was. And had, as opposed to how my listener, when he went to school, it was, well, you had the founding fathers and they were all heroes and everything was all wonderful. The history is now being taught more comprehensively. And rather than just painting everybody in this heroic light. They're talking about the, more about the reality of what happened with Thomas Jefferson owning slaves and, writing in his notes on the state of Virginia, his feelings in terms of black individuals and their inferiority to whites and their ability intellectually, etc. And so the listener was a little kind of concerned that schools are really talking a lot and concentrating a lot on the racism and the slavery, and that they're basically making our forefathers look like bad guys. And what do I see going on in schools? And so I'm mixed, because I think history needs to be taught accurately. And if slavery was if our country was built on the backs of slaves, that has to be taught. That just because we don't like what we did in America, even though in Britain and France they had already abolished slavery, we were slow to do it. Yes, it was started by the British. And I think Thomas Jefferson wanted to convey that we brought slavery to the colonies. We have to figure out how to stop it. All men are created equal, but he had slaves. And then also there was the belief that he had a relationship with Sally Hemings, who was, I believe, 14 to 16 years old, and fathered many children with her, who was one of his slaves, who he temporarily freed, I believe, when they were in France, because in France you couldn't have slaves. So there's a lot of backstory to Thomas Jefferson, even though Thomas Jefferson, as a founding forefather, gets credited with America's freedom from Great Britain and the start of the emancipation push by Abraham Lincoln, based on Thomas Jefferson's "all men are created equal." The schools are going to be now more comprehensive as it relates to what was happening to all populations, Native American, African American, etc. And so I think schools are going to have to ensure that they are teaching with utmost objectivity and honesty. If there were slaves, we need to know about that. That was, and that was, you can't just say somebody was the most angelic person. You have to explain that, look, they, took part of something that we later worked really hard to reverse, whether they had internal struggles or not. Some of their movements helped the situation. Some of their movements didn't. And so, teaching about that, I think, is extremely important. And I think it is a part of the history. You can't just teach history, you can't just, have the front page and not the back page. And you got to be able to, give an accurate account of what's going on. Do we cancel people? Do we take somebody who is considered, the forefather of our country and a hero during the American Revolution, although I don't think he served in battle, but in terms of, what he did and how he was prosecuted for, working to separate from Great Britain, do we, no, we don't cancel them. We don't, try to turn these people into, the most, evil people on the planet. But I think having honesty about what happened. I don't like people hiding history. You can't. I mean, the history of the Holocaust is horrible, and what was done to Jews, Christians, Catholics, LGBTQ. I mean, that was that just to hide it because you don't like what it is. No. I mean, people need to learn, and they need to learn that that's what happened. And credit needs to be where credit's due. If the reason why our forefathers could do the work they could because there were slaves that supported them and that worked for them, slaves need to get credit. So I agree with teaching appropriately and objectively. Now, in terms of the concentration, this is what I know some people are concerned about, where there's so much focus on an aspect of our history that the rest of it might not get taught. Again, the key is you want to teach history comprehensively, the good and the bad. And you don't want to put your, so when I taught medicine, even though I was not a fan of Obamacare, I had to put my subjectivity aside to say, look, this is what the law is. If I'm going to teach to infuse my, personal beliefs and curtail and truncate and no, okay, I need to teach exactly what that is. Let's say you have a person who doesn't believe in birth control. They have to still teach medical students about birth control and teach patients about it because it's an option that it might be necessary. So, when teaching history, if you thought, what Thomas Jefferson did with Sally Hemings was, horrible and what that doesn't come into play. Your job is to teach history. He had a relationship with his slave. Maybe they were in love, maybe they weren't. Well, we don't have evidence, but this is what is being reported. And the kids, students need to know how our country was founded and what was the 1600s like? What were the 1700s like? What was going on? Why was the French Revolution happening at the same time? These are things kids need to learn. Why were poor people put in worse positions in France than they were in America? Why was slavery abolished in France but not in America? What was going on? What was the thinking? Because we need to learn from our mistakes. But when people want to turn around and say, these individuals who served our country or were president or whatever, we need to hang an effigy, that's taking it to another level. You be objective about what they did. It's up to the person, the student, to decide if they want to consider them a hero or not. That's not for the teacher. A teacher doesn't say this person was a real son of a gun. That's not, what did Hitler do? Hitler murdered millions of people. That should be enough for your student to understand this is not right. Fascism is not good. Lack of checks and balances. Inability of other countries to protect themselves against a world power that just kept feeding off of them. And I know it's really, really hard to keep subjectivity out of it. And I understand that there's a lot of teachers that are very frustrated that they weren't taught history the way we're teaching it now. That has to be very frustrating to think that generations of individuals were forgotten, lost, abused. And they don't get the credit they deserve for our country being free. The black soldiers in the Civil War. So teach history correctly, comprehensively, objectively, and I don't think you're going to go wrong. 1-877-Doc-Dolly.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.